His disregard of perfection can also be understood within the artistic climate of the 20s and 30s. Just as many early 20th century artists were looking at a wide range of visual material for aesthetic direction, the arts of Africa, Oceania, Native and American, and early American arts, artists on both, and I don't have to mention Picasso and African mask, but artists on both sides of the Atlantic were also investigating the associated practices, the so-called primitive modes of art making used by other cultures and at earlier times. And these really gave, not only were they cheap to do, but they also gave them a more immediate result, the aesthetic that they were looking for. And if you just think of Alexander Calder's jewelry, it's Celtic inspired, it's bent and hammered, cold worked wire. Those wonderful batiks from the period, the woodcut that I showed you. You can see where this is going. But it also applies certainly to porous rustic pottery. These all use what has been called a process of simplification. And few of porous pottery can be explicitly linked to such things, but we do see indications. And lining this up with some of his notes, he referred to these as kind of a batik pattern. And you can see how it mimics resist dyeing techniques. And this footed plate, or taza, resembles a bit of African carving, I think it's fair to say. Probably more evidently, you can see the very clear correlation between the redware plate at the loose center at the Met and these dishes which the family used for dining. Here you can see one there. And this is also to show you that not all porous patterns were representational. He really did express a real affinity for pattern, particularly at this, in this time period. And it isn't really a far cry from that diaper pattern, that diagonal plate that we see here, to this really wonderful cubist pattern from 1927. And this pattern, I'm discovering, really shows up in a few other places, even in a rug design that Poor did that I've recently seen. And Poor really, he loved to combine elements. Here in the tiles of this fireplace surround, you see chevrons, and then this Dutch tulip. And it really shows, I think, a certain comfort level, not only with a love of nature and abstract pattern, but really this comfort level between the colonial revival and modern design. Given this context, it is not difficult to see why Poor's painted dishes appealed to gallerists such as Montrose and Halpert, curators at the major museums, and well-heeled collectors such as Mrs. Solomon R. Guggenheim, Edsel Ford, Abby Aldridge Rockefeller, to name a few. Poor's sense of pattern and abstraction blended with a variety of collections, from modern painting to American antiques, African sculpture, and I've got my token bits here, this wonderful fireplace surround that Poor did for Ben Hecht. Nyack. His assimilation of traditions made the acquisition of his pottery easy to justify within many broader collecting habits, and his treatment of contemporary subjects gave them certain crossover appeal among modern art enthusiasts. Not only was Poor's pottery spiritually and to some extent aesthetically linked to the progressive European experiments before the war, such as the post-impressionist plates that I showed earlier, also the Omega workshops, which I apologize for not having an image of, but I'm still trying to get a hold of that new catalog. But it was also materially linked to slip-decorated redware chargers made by early American potters. Poor's ability to intuitively combine these seemingly eclectic impulses was seen as uniquely American at this time. And this is a time when many were really considered with forwarding a national identity in modern art. And the rhetoric really does grow stronger into the 30s. Poor took on a number of architectural commissions. Some of you may be familiar with these. These range from modest tile embellishments, and here we have altered today beyond recognition, but here is the Y Gallery bookstore. And we don't know if he did these. We kind of suspect not. It's a pink stucco facade with red, yellow, and blue checkerboard. But we do know with pretty much certainty that he did these, which are probably a 4-square tile of sunflowers, very kind of boldly painted, which correspond to things at Crow House. And then here on East 72nd Street near Lex, you can see some of the few extant examples of his ceramics from that period. One of his more ambitious projects was a ceiling for the Union Dime Savings Bank, and I only have a bad newspaper print of it, but I suspect they looked a lot like this exhibition piece, which shows various animals juxtaposed again with a chevron. And these were, you know, I just can't imagine, you know, if we only had this kind of decoration in our financial institutions today, I don't think we'd be in the mess we are in. In between, he also did this wonderful tile mural, which is a little hard to see, but it doesn't exist anymore, but it was in the Shelton Hotel, the States from 1927, of some of the tiles still exist. And we've got wonderful, Poor was a champion fencer and a great athlete. Alex Katz writes about how he would arm wrestle students at Skowhegan, you know, when he was in his 60s. But these were kind of alternating with these very abstract motifs. The Shelton Hotel, for those of you who don't know, is one of the great skyscraper luxury buildings where people like Georgia O'Keeffe and Stieglitz lived, and she painted a number of works from there. And this was, again, for the athletic club, which no longer exists on the inside. All of these tiles that I'm showing, you know, were made out of the same, whether they were indoor or outdoor, the same kind of low-fired, lead-glazed earthenware. And it's perhaps for this reason that Poor decides to collaborate with one of our country's largest pottery manufacturers, and that's namely Thomas Maddox Sanitary Works in Trenton, New Jersey. And this was on one of his most ambitious projects, namely a bathroom, for the inaugural exhibition of the American Designers Gallery in 1928. And here in these slides you can see wonderful tub, exuberant nude in the shower. What fun. And this really kind of wonderful design of a sink, which is kind of an inverted and faceted cone shape. Poor did all of these things and had the floor as well, the toilet, which you can see a bit of. And he also had the curtains printed to his own design.